All right, everybody. Here's lesson number 3 on what not to do as a leader. Lesson number 3 is don't let your ego lead. Now, look, I know we hear that a lot in our society, and they say the ego is bad. That is the absolute lie. That is absolutely not the truth. Your ego is a good thing when it's put in check and you know how to utilize ego. You see, ego is that thing when the grizzly bear comes to attack you and you chase it down, you smack it in the snoot with the idea, I might live. That's ego. Ego is that thing when you look at a project and you bolster yourself up and you believe in yourself and you tell the boss, we can do this. I really believe it's going to be a challenge, but to be honest, if we keep our ducks in a row, we've got this. I know I have the skill to do this. All right. Ego is not a bad thing, but when ego is out of control, I'm going to tell you it's a terrible thing. And sometimes ego is a very subtle thing. We don't always realize what ego actually is. Now, look, I've been in the leading or leadership world or leading on some fashion since I was 16, 17 years old, and I'm 50 years old. I'm 50 years old now. No. And I'm got to tell you, there was times where I would show up at a job site and things were messed up and I wasn't there a day and I knew what was wrong. Okay? I knew what was wrong. And I would make snap judgments and things that would be fixed in the moment, but they wouldn't stay fixed. I didn't understand why. It's because I was looking at things with an egotistical, know-it-all sort of attitude, and I didn't even realize it, guys. Because I had been there, done that, I had seen the process, I could fix things, but I never got down to the surface of what was really wrong. And my ego clouded my vision. Yes, absolutely, we shouldn't be egotistical. Absolutely, we shouldn't be the person who shows up and says, hey, wait till they get a load of me. Yes, all those things I understand, but sometimes ego is even more subtle than that. What we don't realize is that when we show up and throw our weight around because we have the experience, that's part of our ego. You know, I'm coaching a guy and in the blue collar world, and the execs wanted to really delve into and buy into this guy and invest in him. And I'll never forget what he said. He's like, look, man, we're here to work. We're here to work hard. And that's just the way it is. That's just the way I am. And I've heard this 1,000 times. That's just the way I am. All right. God, that's your ego. That's your ego. Your ego says, this is who I am. I will not compromise beyond that. And I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing all the time. Fact is, we need to be questioning our own motives. Ego doesn't allow us to do that. Now, I'm not saying on moral judgments here, okay? If you have something that's moral and you're like, hey, look, I'm not going to compromise on not stealing from my organization that I work for. I'm not going to steal. It's wrong. Okay, no, I'm not saying that. That's you shouldn't steal, right? So I'm not saying moral judgments, but what I am saying is the fact that you never question yourself. And the people that you work for, it just comes across as you being, and I have no other way of saying this, you being an asshole. Because you always seem to have the answer, whether it's right or wrong. And you never seem to own your problems. You see, ownership is one of the biggest things that you can possibly have. They've dubbed it as servant leadership. And I understand that, but it's just leadership. It's true understanding of how to be a great leader. We serve one another and we own our mistakes. And the way that we do that is with humility. Look, I know somebody I have in my life right now, but every time she apologizes, it looks more like, well, I'm sorry, but blah, 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 blah. That's all you ever hear from this person. That's not humble. That's her ego absolutely refusing to allow anyone to consider that they could be wrong, including herself. And she's blind. She's walking blind as a leader in her life. And so are you if you aren't truly making, when you fall short, right with others. When that ego leads, when that pride rises up in you to such a way that you are hurting your relationships with those you lead or those you live with, your ego is out of control. And it isn't always you being a narcissist. Ego doesn't mean that you're always well preened and as gorgeous and beautiful as I am. I couldn't even get it out. I couldn't even get it out to you people. I couldn't say it without laughing. Ego isn't always you having to drive the nicest car or you being on stage or you always have to be the leader or nothing. That, those things, yes, that's an egotistical person. But sometimes what we don't realize is ego in us is so subtle. It's so subtle. I catch myself all the time. I'm like, with subtle things. And I'll realize that's my ego. That's my pride rising up within me. And I'll have to apologize and make it right. Look, if you truly want to build a great legacy with the people that you live with, the people that you work with, you've got to start to think for yourself. Because if ego's doing the talking, if ego's doing the walking, if ego's doing the thinking, you'll get somewhere, but you'll get there very much alone. Because after a while, people will realize who you are and they'll stop following you and they'll stop carrying you. And it's a very lonely life. I'll never forget coaching an organization and going to a conference and sitting down in the lobby with one of the workers. And they had just gotten to know, they were new to the organization. They just got to know this particular person. And we'll call this person Dan. So there's like, well, I got to know Dan. And he just looked at me. I got to know Dan. Do you know Dan? And I was like, yeah, I know Dan. And he said, Dan is a very interesting guy. And when he's out in the field, he doesn't really listen to his guys at all, does he? No, bud, not right now. I'm not coaching Dan. I know Dan. I've heard about Dan, but yes, he doesn't listen. And then he'd say, Dan's always got to be right, and even when he's wrong, he's right. I said, yeah, I know, but he goes, Dan's really hard to work with, isn't he? I said, yeah. The unfortunate thing about Dan was he was an older guy, and the fact that he hadn't caught on by now is pretty rough. That his ego was so taking him over, doing the walking, doing the talking, doing the working for him, that he forgot to network and have a team. And when it came time for people to back him up in something, Dan was very much alone. And I'm going to tell you that right now, guys. Ego will choke the life out of you. It'll take the joy out of everything. And ego demands more. It's always hungry for more. And you'll find yourself more dissatisfied with life and still yet hungry for more because you don't realize you're not putting other people first. You're not working like a teammate. You're not asking other people's opinions and what they would do in a certain position or job. Or at home, you're domineering the house. You have to control every little ounce of everything that goes on in the lives of those you share life with. And in time, those people will fade away, not because they've betrayed you, because that's what ego would tell you. It's because you're a domineering ass. And I know that's a harsh critique, but it's true. It's true because I've lived it. It's true because I did it. And it's true because I have to keep myself in check. I have to keep my ego in check. Look, you're looking at a guy who wants his way. You're looking at a guy who is high functioning, who is type A personality and a lot of my personality traits. And I have had to work really hard to try to understand the need with other people and listen to them right where they're at. Every morning, I would have a leader come into my life, or come into my office rather, and he would check on everybody first thing in the morning. And it was so funny how he would do it. He would walk out of his office. You could hear him getting ready to do his rounds. He would pop in my office. Hey, man, how you doing? How's the family? And the moment that I'm about to answer, he would say, Yeah, look, so and so region really needs some attention right now. I would love it if this week you'd drive down there and make a presence notes. Thanks. And then he would go to the next office and he would talk to the HR lady next door, and he would say, "Hey, how you doing? How's the family? Is everything okay? Hey, look, this is what I need to happen today." And so he wouldn't even allow them to answer. He wouldn't really even try to get to know them on a personal level. Everything was about work. Everything is about what he wanted all the time. And if he was nice to you and he was buttering you up, everybody in the company had a saying, look, if he's buttering you up, you know he's about, we'll just put it this way, he's about to cheat you in some way. I'll keep it nice. I'll keep it friendly here, okay? Just in case your kids are watching. Because he had a lot of ego. The man had a lot of ego and he didn't understand that, look, if you want to get inside people's hearts, here's the gateway. And if they think you don't care about them and you care more about you, if they realize that you're just an egotistical maniac, they're not going to listen to you. Oh, at first they do, but your relationships will fade quickly. I give you two more examples. I only said one. Let's give you two more. Let's go some extra. Let's go some bonus on this one. And let me try to add value to your life. I had a personal friend of mine, and everything was always about what he wanted to do. And I'm a family man. I want to be with my family. And I'll never forget, I had worked a week that I had been in a piece of equipment for 80 hours that week. 80 hours. And I couldn't make it to a concert he wanted to go to. And he completely flipped out on me on the phone, wondering when I was going to worry about their friendship and do something for their friendship. Look, I had two young kids and a beautiful wife. I had been gone for 80 hours, and the week before that was 70. The week before that was 70. I had been going 3 months of 60, 70, and 80-hour work weeks. My kids wanted my attention. My kids are what was important. My family was what is important. But his ego is what was important to him. And it eventually broke the friendship. I had a client, and the president was a narcissist. He would make promises all the time to people he had no intentions to keep. And when he got everything he wanted out of them, he'd dump them. He'd fire them, or he would let them go. They didn't really fire people unless they did something egregious. They just let them go. He loved the attention. He loved the online presence. He loved looking good, but he didn't love being good. Look, if you really want to aspire to be a great leader and you want to aspire to grow and do things bigger than that of yourself, at some point, you have to realize that's all about serving your fellow man. And to serve your fellow man, you've got to let your own ego die a little bit. You've got to keep it in check and make it understand. Yes, you might be on stage today talking in front of 1,000 people like me. Your ego has to understand, okay, ego, I need you to help me be brave and serve these people while I'm up there. But when this is after and people are wanting to talk to me for advice, it's time for you to take the back seat. So it's time for me to serve and give of myself. Because if I'm not wore out by the time I leave this place, I haven't done my job. Look, if you're a foreman, you're a superintendent, you're an office manager, you've got to understand, if you want to rise above and lead and you want people to truly follow you, you've got to put that ego in check. I had a boss that told me one time, Michael, his name was Matt. Matt said, Michael, there are two kinds of leaders in this world. And I say this all the time. I quote him all the time because it's so important. He said, there's two kinds of leaders in this world. Number one, Michael, there's the kind of leader that says charge on the battlefield. And when he runs ahead, everyone takes doop, 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 2 or 3 steps back and hopes that guy gets shot, stabbed, cleaved in two. Then there's the other kind of leader on the field of battle. When he says charge, everyone runs ahead of him. And the reason why they run ahead of him is because they know the type of value that leader has placed in their lives and the lives of others. And so they see the importance of him or her, and they make the proper sacrifices so that he can move on and live and grow and lead again. He said, Michael, which kind of leader do you want to be? The choice is up to you. Matt Boatman, thank you for that, brother. Thank you for that, because it changed the way I looked at things all the more. So I ask you today, which kind of leader do you want to be? Do you want to be the one that people are always taking those 2 or 3 steps back, hoping you get hurt? Or do you want to be the leader that when you put out the battle cry, when you blown the horn of battle, or you need help, people rush to your aid or rush past you because they know the kind of value you bring? I can tell you emphatically, I want to be that second leader. I want to be admired, not because I'm a narcissist and I love myself so much that I can't get my head through the door. No, it's because I know that kind of impact changes people's lives. Do you want to be that kind of leader? Start to question yourself. You want to be that kind of leader? Start to own you. You want to be that kind of leader? Put your ego in check. Understand it, control it, master it. And my friend, you will build a legacy that will far surpass your legend. You'll inspire others to do the same. And that, my friends, is how we change the world. Listen, we've given out these 3 free lessons to you. If you want more, there is so much more on our website. If you haven't downloaded the leadership guide, it's bowmanlegacies.com/great leader. bowmanlegacies.com/great leader. And if you want more, reach out for more, because moving forward and growing intentionally is what's going to get you where you want to go. And if you haven't heard it this week, I love you. I love you. And how can I say I love you? It's because I believe the good Lord loves me. And if he can love this guy, I can love you for sure. I'm proud of you. Keep going, keep growing, keep building that legacy.